So that's us recording now. Finance for non-professionals. This is a very basic overview of how you deal with your finances within your virtual assistant business. And a very big thank you has to go to Carol Merrick, who runs office stuff. She's stepped in at the last minute after we were let down by one of the speakers. So a wholeheartedly thank you for her, because she's done us a massive favour and really has jumped in last minute. But what we wanted to cover first of all was a little bit about Carol's background and where she lives. And look at this beautiful view. This is where Carol lives. It's not particularly relevant to finance, but perhaps Carol can explain what this is.
Well, that actually, my dear, is the house where I live.
There's not much round it.
No, Welsh Hills. My husband's a shepherd for a farm down in the valley to the right of the photograph, and they own about 5,000 acres of Welsh hillside, as you can see, and probably about 3,000 sheep, some of which you can see as little white specks.
Wonderful.
Yes.
It's not particularly relevant, but I just find it really interesting, and it does explain exactly why Carol is a virtual assistant, and why she has to work virtually, because essentially the rural location has meant that you had to become a virtual assistant because there's not much else there.
Well, no. I mean, I'm fortunate in that it might look isolated, but I'm actually fairly central to 3 of the major local towns, which are the short distance of 25 miles away. That's short, you know, in rural Wales. And I moved to Wales in '93, married himself in '94, and I did find jobs here, but obviously none of them really had the potential that I was used to. And eventually in about 2003 I was made redundant, and I thought, I've had enough of this. And office stuff was put into motion in 2004. I got a part-time job to help support me whilst I built it up and started it off. And it was launched in January 2005 with the help of 2 referrals from, he's still my favourite bank manager, although he's now retired from banking. And it was really getting to know him through the company I was working for. And he believed in me, and he referred a couple of fairly large clients, and that was how Office Stuff was actually in a position to give up its part-time job and go full-time as a virtual assistant.
It is sort of a good story, I think, and it shows you, as somebody who gets a bit panicky if she doesn't have a 24-hour shop within walking distance, it's quite mind-boggling to me. So I just wanted to cover that. Carol's done sort of accounts and bookkeeping services for many clients. And what we wanted to cover off is what do you actually get asked to do by the clients?
It can range from entering all their stuff, invoices that they receive, and well, bills that they receive and invoices that they issue, to at fairly regular intervals. I've got one client that I just do it for quarterly so that he can do his VAT returns, and I've got one client for whom I simply do invoicing and chasing. So it's basically to suit the client's needs. If they're already working with an accountant, I'm quite happy to assist and work closely with their accountant, which I enjoy and find particularly helpful to me because they don't mind having their brains picked. So it can range from entering things on a simple spreadsheet to actually using QuickBooks or Sage or whatever it is that the client wants to use. Very client-based.
So it's sort of what they ask you to do. So some clients might just ask you to do, say, receipt processing, almost like data entry, and other ones will want basically to have, you know, the full service all the way up to submitting stuff to HMRC. No, that's good. So
no, I don't do tax returns.
Ah, right. Okay.
Well, I do and I don't. If the client has an accountant, then I leave VAT returns and self-assessment tax returns to the accountants to handle. If it's a very small client, then I'm quite happy doing a VAT return, but I still believe it's up to them to sort out their own self-assessment tax return. Okay. And if they're in business, most of them have an accountant.
I have to say, I mean, that generally is what I tend to find as well. So that's kind of offering it. Most VAs, I would say, don't have an accountant. I do, because I hate numbers and generally I'm useless at them. So it's better if I just hand them over to somebody else. You know, but a good accountant should save you money when they're doing your books, because they'll ask you the right questions in order to make sure that you're being the most tax efficient possible.
It's not really difficult to be tax efficient if you're a VA, because the bottom line is your business is quite simple. You have income and you have expenditure.
It's very true, and then there's expenses you can have off that, and it's
yes, and there is expenditure. Well, most of the expenditure is actually a cost to the business.
Yes.
So when you come to do your self-assessment tax return, it's basically you add up how much you invoiced, and that's your income and turnover, and then you deduct how much it cost you to run your business, i.e. the stationery, telephone. If you're running your business from home, then you can claim for a proportion of the heating and lighting and whatever. And then what you've got after you've taken off the expenses is your profit, and that's what you get taxed on.
Cool, cool. So why do we need accountants in the first place? And I've got two pictures here. Who's the first one? We all know him.
He's Mr. Taxman. You need accounts because as soon as you have set up a business, it is a legal requirement for you to keep accounts. And when you set up a business, you have to register as, I'm talking sole trader now rather than limited companies. You have to register as self-employed with the taxman within 3 months of setting up.
And most VAs are self-employed sole traders, aren't they? There are very few limited companies, and there's not really very many reasons why a VA would become limited unless there's quite special circumstances.
Yes, and then again, it's best if you think you need to be a limited company, then you should seek the advice of an accountant. But the simplest way of running your business is to become a self-employed sole trader.
Very much so. The second picture we've got here is kind of charts and graphs, but basically it's to represent tracking your business. And
yes,
one of the things that's really important is your cash flow. So Carol will expand on that.
If you don't keep records, you have absolutely no idea how your business is doing, whether you're making a profit, whether you're breaking even, or even whether you're making a loss. So you need to track your income and expenditure, because then you can budget. Once you know what you're spending and what is coming in, you can budget for things that you might want to buy, like, I mean, I know there's a flurry of excitement at the moment because the new iPhone 5 or something has come out. So if you have budgeted carefully, then you will find you have enough money in your equipment budget to purchase the new toy.
I love new toys. I love gadgets.
Well, you need to be a very good girl and you need to budget.
The other one as well is, particularly in my business, I definitely have seasonal slumps and troughs. So, for
Yeah.
example, in the summer it's quite quiet because a lot of my clients are away on holiday, and also at Christmas and New Year because they're taking holidays. We seem to have a dip in income from particular services, and therefore, if you can predict that, you don't panic when you get there and think, "Oh, I've not got any money." So it is really important.
Yes, where have they all gone? I haven't done any invoicing this month, and if you don't do any invoicing, you don't have any income. Panic! But if you have been a good girl and you have budgeted, you'll know to expect these peaks and troughs. And when you're having a peak, you stash some money away to carry you over the troughs.
Exactly. So moving on, we've sort of covered what the clients come to you for. This one is very simple. What do HMRC need from you? So we've got balances here. And the first one is, we touched on this briefly, but invoices, money you've earned, minus receipts, money you spent, equals profit. I love profit. And this is sometimes called turnover. So I like profit. I'm going to quote the lovely Sarah Bradley here, which is turnover is vanity and profit is sanity. I always like that saying.
Turnover actually just means the amount of money you have coming in over a year. So you might be able to say, oh gosh, my turnover was £1 million last year, which makes you sound really impressive. But actually, you spent £999,000 on business expenses. So your profit is only £1,000.
And profit is the thing that we want. We want to have money in the bank so we can go and buy ourselves a nice little present.
That's it.
Our fancy car, etc. We like all that stuff. So we're interested in this figure, not this figure up here.
No. Well, obviously, the invoices, the turnover, the money you earn, you want to have a high turnover. But be aware that if you have a high turnover and you don't have much money going out on software or equipment, then your profit is going to be quite high and you will pay more tax.
Because profit is what the tax man is interested in, and that's what you get taxed on, isn't it?
Yes, that is the amount. When you fill in your self-assessment tax return, you put in the amount of money you have earned and the amount of money allowable business expenses, and that gives you, it will calculate it, it'll give you a profit figure, and then it will calculate again how much tax you owe.
So just touching on
all over.
Yes, no, I don't like that bit. Just touching on the sort of money you spend in running the business. So what's kind of an allowable expense there? I know parking tickets aren't allowed because I tried that. Yeah, well, genuine business expenses. So it could be
genuine business expenses. I mean, if you're running a VA practice, you will need ink for your printers, you will need paper for your printers, you might need some to upgrade your Microsoft Office software, you might need a new screen, generally any equipment. That's basically it. Where your parking tickets are concerned,
makes me sound like I have loads of them. I don't usually.
No. Do you mean a parking ticket as in because you parked in the wrong place?
Yeah, parking ticket because I were parked in the wrong place. Yeah, so it's not allowed. You're parking. Let's say if I'd parked in a car park, and you can put that on your expenses, yes. Certainly. Yes. Other things that you can also claim, Carol touched on this before, but sort of a proportion of your heating and lighting and all the rest of it for your home office.
Yeah. I have seen it that, well, and you can do it on a weekly amount, and I think at the moment it's £4 a week. But I do it, I get all my electricity bills for the year, and because I have a room that is 99.9% used as an office, then I divide the bill by the number of rooms, and charge for one room, and that's the cost of my electricity.
Okay. Irene's asking, can we charge for training? So if it was VA-specific training?
Yes. Well, it's an expense. It's an expense against the business.
You wouldn't be doing it unless it was for the business, basically.
Exactly. I mean, if you want to offer a bookkeeping service and you decide you're going to go and do some a bookkeeping course at home, then the cost of this course will be set against the business, because it's necessary for you to do it in order to be able to offer that service.
And subscriptions?
I mean, if you wanted to, yes, that's claimable as well, because they're a business necessity.
So it might be, it could be, say, the VA magazine that you had a subscription for that, or it could also be things like, I'm thinking of every month I have data backup, which is a subscription that I have, and it's a business expense because I wouldn't have it unless I had the business.
Exactly.
Also things like subscribing to things like so data backup, subscribing to things like, for example, file transfer services. We have quite large files that we transfer.
Yeah, I mean, before all this cloud computing happened, you'd probably have to have bought a piece of software to provide whatever, backup something. So if you could replace your cloud subscription with a piece of software, which you can't, but if you could, then of course that's an allowable business expense. Anything broadly speaking that to run your business you have to have, then it's an allowable business expense. I mean, obviously if we wanted to do a course in basket weaving,
that's not allowable.
Selling VA baskets, Mr. Taxman might query that.
Yes, and I must admit, there's sometimes questionable things. Like, for example, let's say you had a mobile phone for personal use and business use. They might ask you, okay, what percentage of your calls are for business use? For example, that's what my accountant does with mine. Question from Rebecca: can you put mileage or fuel through for client visits or working from their offices?
Yes. The way I do that, because obviously the car you've got isn't exclusively for business use, is I actually do an expenses claim every month, and on that I put the mileage that I have done for business, and Mr. Taxman allows you to claim 45p a mile, and that is to cover the fuel, the maintenance of your car, like its road tax and its garage bills and things like that.
I've done it
if you're
both
traveling
ways.
to and from a client site, I was told that was the easiest way of doing it.
Yeah,
So
I must admit, that's the way that I've done it and continue to do it. I have also done it, it's perhaps a little bit dodgy, but I have done it that I had a very old car and it was breaking down all the time. And what I was finding is that I was using it quite a lot for business. Because I live just next door to the office practically. I live about 3 blocks from the office, so I wasn't really, driving a lot of personal driving. Quite a lot of it was business driving, and what I did is I put all the expenses, so your car tax, your repairs on the car, any payments of the car, all this kind of stuff through the business. And then what Mr. HMLC did was said, right, what percentage of the time do you use that car for business use? And we'll do it that way as well. So that's another way to do it, although they don't like you doing it that way. Charging the 45p a miles is a lot easier.
It does, yes, it does. It makes life much simpler.
So I think we've covered. Any more questions on what you can claim? Anybody ping them through? I don't think we've got any more on that. If you do have any, just ping them through and we'll do them at the end as well. So we talked about register of self-employment. How simple is that to do, Carol?
Very simple. You can do it online.
We've got that link up here.
Yeah, just do it online. I mean, it asks you some questions, what you're going to be doing and all that lot. And bingo, off you go.
So
there's sorry. The postman's just been, courtesy of my husband, and I've got this box thing. And I opened it and it said, "To Carol, thanks for stepping in last minute and saving our SVA bacon."
Oh, wonderful. I am glad. Well, wonderful timing.
Oh,
there we go.
Oh, bless you.
Just
Anyway,
a little thank you.
back to, yes.
Yes.
Oh,
So it's very easy to do. Don't be scared of the
welcome.
tax man, because they are quite good.
It is, yeah. No. They are excellent, in fact. They're very, if you've got a query, don't hesitate to pick the phone up, because they are extremely helpful when you can get through.
No, that is an issue sometimes.
And yes, but they're not there to bite you or to be nasty. And in fact, when I have had clients who have, not through my fault, run into trouble, the Inland Revenue were always extremely helpful. I mean, they didn't want the business to fail because it was hassle for them, and it also meant that they wouldn't get the tax that they were owed. But they really were extremely helpful.
Yeah.
VAT office is a different matter.
So we've talked about receipts, and
it is very easy. Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about receipts and that you need to keep them. What's the best way to store them? Why do you need to keep them safe, and how long do you need to keep them? So obviously receipts, HMRC needs to see the proof, don't they?
Well, they don't actually need to sit. Well, you need to have it available in case they decide in their wisdom that they're going to come and pay you a little visit. So I store all mine in a LibreArch file. The vast bulk of it is copies of invoices that I send out, because I still like to have a paper copy, because I can clunk it as paid.
It's always good fun, that bit.
Yeah, yes, and I like my rubber stamps. And then I don't spend a vast amount of money on business expenses. I suppose marketing and software is where the bulk of my expenses go.
Yeah.
Because I have a button for software. So I just, enter it in whatever bookkeeping recording you choose. It can be a spreadsheet, it can be Sage Instant, it can be cash flow, Xero, FreshBooks, whatever. You enter it, and I just keep the paperwork, and I think the Inland Revenue likes you to keep your records relating to each particular tax assessment for, I think it's 6 years.
Yeah, that sounds about right. It's quite a long time, in fact. So it's good just to have them stored away. I must admit, I do something similar to you. I have envelopes for that month. So it'd be January 2002, onwards, etc. I basically keep them in these envelopes, and I also have a secure file storage off-site, in fact, where the office is, which is all fireproof and stuff. So it is really important that you keep them safe, just in case HMRC do come back and say, we don't think that's quite right. So in terms of income, how do you track that? You said you print out each invoice that you send, and that you then keep it in a LibreArch file. What other forms of income might you get where you don't perhaps have that? You've got to track things like bank payments, coming into your bank, checks, cash, PayPal.
Oh, right. Now then, I don't actually use PayPal, so I can't comment on that. But I usually go and have a look at my bank account every day. And
you're a good girl, Carrie, much better than me.
I know. Well, I like to see the money rolling in, you see.
That's always nice.
Yes, I'm sad, really. I get my thrills so cheaply. So all my bookkeeping is done on QuickBooks, because I like QuickBooks. So I go into the bank account every day, and if I see somebody has paid, then I just go into QuickBooks and enter it against that client's invoices and tick it off as paid.
Yeah, it helps to keep track of that, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, you can do the same with a basic spreadsheet. If you've got a spreadsheet that records income and you enter all your invoices on that, then you can just go and colour the cell that the invoice is in to indicate that it's been paid.
So, so you've kind of got a track record of who has paid what.
When you get your bank statement at the end of the month, you need to reconcile the income, i.e. what the clients have paid you, or any other sort of income, with the evidence and the outgoings on your bank statement with the evidence that you've got in your Excel spreadsheet, or
just to make sure it's all right. I got you. So let's say we've reached the end of the year. We've made a profit. Fantastic. I like money. Yay. What would really raise red flags with HMRC? What kind of things do they look for, and how do they know that they should be investigating you?
If, for instance, I don't know, for the last, say, 2 years, you've had a profit of, say, £10,000. Very nice. And then all of a sudden, it drops, and you actually make under the personnel allowance, which I think is about 7,000 something or other at the moment. And they might think, but do remember you're a small business, sole trader, very, very small cog in the wheel, but that's not an excuse to not do things properly. And then if it happens again for the second year, then they might sort of think, well, she was very good the first 2 years, and that might trigger an investigation. It's when they notice quite a big variance in your customary behaviour.
Yeah.
So if we'll take an example of a company, because that's going to, the difference is going to be more visible. If a company is well, not a company, but a big sole trader, usually has profits of £25,000, and then they suddenly drop to, or he makes a loss. Anything that's out of the usual pattern, they will want to know more about.
And also HMRC have benchmarks for all kinds of businesses. They know roughly what a VA should be spending on travel, technology, marketing, stuff like that. So they know, and they also know what profit they would usually make. So if you're submitting a claim that you're earning way less than average, or that your costs are way more, they may want to speak to you, not because they think that you're fiddling the books, although you might be, but generally because they'll want to find out why your business is different from the majority of other businesses. So, for example, they'll probably know roughly what a taxi driver makes, or roughly what a business coach would make in a year, and that they want to find out what their benchmarks are and what that is. So, you want to avoid at all costs triggering those investigations. And I've always believed, if you're making money, honesty is the best policy. Be honest about it. You might even get a tax refund, actually, if you've paid some upfront, the previous year, or perhaps you've been on a pay-as-you-earn contract, and then have then become self-employed. You may even find that you've overpaid your tax, and they'll give you some money back. Certainly the first year of my business, I think, first and second, actually, I think I've got some money back because I was still employed. So that's always quite a nice thing as well.
Yes. Yes, but if you're a wise owl, you go and put it in your business savings account to carry you over the drops.
Indeed, indeed. And I'm not very good at that, I have to admit, Carol. I'll be smacked wrist for me. So let's say I'm a new BVA. I've landed a client. I've done the work. He's agreed to pay me. Now what? What happens?
He's agreed to pay you. Now then, you need some terms and conditions which set out when you expect to be paid by your clients. If you don't have terms and conditions which set out the payment interval, if you like, then if he doesn't pay you for 60 days, you haven't really got a leg to stand on, because you haven't made it clear what you expect. Normally, well, as you know from paying bills yourselves, it's 30 days credit, but it doesn't have to be. For instance, I want my dosh in 7 days after invoice. Others
Right
have
with you on
14
that.
days. Some are very generous and give 30 days credit. I have a client who wants payment by return. And then, so you're not obliged to give credit at all. There's nothing that says that you have to.
We were actually speaking this morning to Helen Stoddard, and she was saying that she gets paid in advance by all of her clients. They pay her up front, which I think is a brilliant system, and I really should instigate it more. We do. Some people do it, but I have to say it's not as many as I'd like.
I don't actually like that. I don't know, because if you've got retainer clients, and they pay you up front in return for a small discount, I don't know, that money has to go and sit in the client accounts, and you can't actually use it or touch it until you've actually done the hours that the client has booked, or a proportion thereof, in which case you pay yourself a proportion of the money that you've got stashed away. All my clients, except one, get invoiced when I finish the work that I've done.
Okay, so
I've never had any trouble with it.
We're going to raise an invoice. What do you need to put on the invoice in terms of legally and also, practically?
Well, legally, you need a date. You also need your address. So, for instance, I'm Carol Merrick, trading as office stuff, and I put my address after that. You also, for practical reasons, need an invoice number, because you might be sending several invoices out to the same client, and they might all be for different amounts. And when he pays you for just one, it makes it easier to, allocate the money to the invoice. Other than that, the clearer the invoice is, the better the client will understand it, and the less reasons he'll have not to pay it.
I always like clarity in that, and the other thing I always put in really big red letters on the bottom of all my invoices is how to pay me, which sounds like a stupid thing, but it's an easy thing to forget.
Yeah, yeah. And nowadays, I mean, those who want to can I mean, I know some VAs who actually encourage their clients to pay online.
Oh, I do, yeah.
Yes, well, yes, I don't. Most of my clients pay me direct into my bank account, which is wonderful. I can't remember the last time I saw a cheque.
I hate it. Somebody sends you a cheque and it sinks your heart, doesn't it? Because you're going to have to go and bank the thing.
Well, I just send them off with a paying in slip to the bank, but there's always a delay, whereas now with the faster payment service in the bank, they can pay you in the morning and it will be in your bank account in the afternoon.
Yeah, and it's also in terms of actually getting the money in and offering credit and things like that. I mean, there's no excuse now that somebody who runs a business can't pay you, say, at least next day, because obviously all the banks have signed up to the faster banking scheme, and it might be 2 days perhaps if they're late the first day paying it and maybe miss the deadline. But I mean, to pay you within 3 working days is absolutely, possible for any business, really. We've got a question on the board here. This one is from Rebecca. Let's have a look at what it is. Hang on a sec. She asks, what is the best way of taking money out of the business for living? Obviously, I take minimum amount and not always the same amount. Do you list it as an outgoings ledger or as a salary? Mine is a limited company.
If she's a limited company, then I guess it would be a director's salary.
Great. No, that's a good one.
She needs to speak to her accountant about that one.
Very good. No,
because there are various ways of taking directors' emoluments.
Yeah.
It's a good word,
Generally, I mean, generally, I would say we should put a disclaimer on this that obviously, if you've got a query on stuff, Carol is not responsible for the advice that she gave you, but that basically, what you should do
generally,
is check it with an accountant, and accountants will give you a
yeah,
free session.
especially if you're a limited company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also,
if you're a sole trader,
Irene's
it
just
goes
asked about
down
that. So, what would you recommend as a sole trader?
Drawing money, take it as drawings, but remember, it does. If the more you take out, if you take out lots of drawings from your business, that does not affect your tax position as far as profit is concerned. It makes
expand on
no
that.
difference to the it makes absolutely no difference to the profit that you're making.
So, for example, let's say, just to take a real life example, let's say you have a turnover of 40 grand in your business, and of that, 30 grand of it is profit, but you've only taken drawings out of 500 quid a month. It doesn't make any difference to the taxman at the end of the year, does it?
No, because what the taxman looks for is how much you've brought in and how much it has cost you to run your business. And the how much you brought in minus the how much it's cost you to run your business equals the profit. And actually, by taking drawings at whatever regular periods you want to take drawings, comes out of your profit. But
good explanation.
Is only going to look at the whole. Is only going to look at the whole profit. So be aware that if if you've taken all the surplus money out of your bank every month as drawings, you won't have enough left at the end of the tax year to pay the taxman what he thinks is due.
I have a lovely friend. She's going to remain nameless on this one because bless her little cotton socks, she just had no idea. She's working as a freelancer, and as you know, when you register with HMRC, one of the things that you have to do is pay national insurance contributions. Now, these are minimal. It's only about, what, 12 quid a month, 10, 12 quid a month? It's not very much.
No.
If you're registered, you have to pay these. And she mistakenly believed that this was what she was paying, that was her tax. And she got to the end of the tax year. She knew she had to submit a tax return and was really surprised to get a tax bill. It was awful. It was a really horrible surprise, but do keep money back. 31st of January, have the money available. So let's say we've invoiced our client. We've sent in the invoice. Our payment terms, whatever they are, have been and gone, and we haven't received payment. What happens, Carol?
If you haven't received payment within your payment terms, then I usually start off by sending a statement. And if I don't hear from the client within a week, then I'll ring them up and very nicely say, did you get the invoice? Was the work okay? Is there a problem with it? Why's the invoice not been paid?
That's a good point. I mean,
it's at the bottom of the pile on their desk. They've forgotten it. They've been on holiday. There are perfectly genuine reasons for your invoice not having been paid. The nice scenario is that you sort it out at your phone call, and a couple of days later, the money's in your bank account.
And I would say 90% of the time that's what happens, isn't it? We very rarely have problems with payment. Most of the time we're working with busy people and it's simply slipped off their radar.
Yeah. And I can safely say in the 7 years and 9 months that I have been trading, I have never actually taken anybody to court.
Oh, I have, but we'll get to that.
Well, you're lucky, but I've always made it a point of chasing when the payment falls out with my payment terms, and usually they've forgotten it. Oh, sorry. But if you're, they say, oh, I'm terribly sorry, I've forgotten it, and a week later you still haven't been paid, then I have 3 letters that I send out. One is a very nice, refer to our phone conversation when you said, blah, blah, blah. Sorry to note that I still haven't received payment, blah, blah, blah. And then the next one is rather less nice. And the third one is when I get really cross and I say, unless payment is received within the next period, I shall have no alternative but to take legal action to recover the debt.
And Lindsay's pointed out that sometimes clients only pay when they get that reminder. It's annoying, but it can be a habit that they fall into. You want it.
In which case, if they're a valued client and you get on well with them, then you need to ring them up and say, look, excuse me.
That's a good way of doing it. Or the other thing is, I know that Lindsay does this, offer them preferential terms on prompt payment. So let's say if they pay within 7 days, they get a discount on the bill. If they don't pay within that time, then they don't get the discount. That's another way of dealing with it as well. It's just quite
rather
good.
messes up the bookkeeping, that one.
It does. It's not something I would like to do.
Yeah, no, it's not something that I would do. And having done the books for people who do that, it's a pain in the bum. And it's also a pain in the bum dealing on behalf of clients with their suppliers who send invoices and say if it's paid within or by a certain date, you have a 1% discount, because you really have to look out for that because it's very easy to miss. And of course it means that rather than paying on 30 days as you would normally, that one's got to be brought forward and paid in their terms so that you qualify for the discount. And from a bookkeeper's point of view, it's a pain in the bum.
That's very true. So let's say it's gone badly wrong, and he's not paid. There's some problem with it. I would say the first thing to do is to stop working for them, because if he's not paid one bill, don't carry on working.
No, that is a big no-no. If you have one bill outstanding, I have a motto: no pay, me no worky.
I like that one. or the other thing is, if they can't afford to pay you, that you can't afford to work with them, because as a small business owner, you're working for nothing if you do that. And in fact, 2 of the times when I've had to take people to court, one of them has been literally that I took my eye off the ball, and we had a lot of subcontractors do work for us. And I didn't realise how much of a bill they'd run up, which happens very rarely. And actually, we've put systems in place so that won't happen ever again. However, you've got to put that account on stop. As soon as you've got an unpaid bill, that's it. The work's cut off. And in fact, the minute you do that, a lot of people cough up, even if they've been a bit slow to pay.
Yeah. I usually send them a nice letter. When I send the statement, and then when I ring them up, if they still haven't paid, I say to them, then you realise that I cannot carry on working for you until this bill is paid. And that usually does it. And it's, oh, well, I'm ever so sorry. But no, it goes without saying that if you've got one invoice outstanding, you don't carry on working, because you could be on a hiding to nothing.
And even if you take them to court, and I'll share a little bit about the other situation that I had. So one of them was that the subcontractor drew up a huge bill without me noticing, and the client was quite happy for them to continue working, but had no intention of paying. We took them to the small claims court. And basically it is a last resort, because A, you're not going to keep the client. You take them to court, they're not going to continue working with you. No. B, it costs you money to lodge a complaint. It's slightly different in Scotland than it is in England, but it does actually cost you to lodge that complaint. And if it's going to work generally, if they've got the money and they're just being awkward about it, and they definitely owe you the money, sometimes having that small court judgment, or that small court citation sent to them will shock them into doing it. Sometimes I fill in the paperwork and send it to them and say, this is going to be lodged on Monday with the court unless you pay it. It means you don't have to actually spend the money to lodge it with the court, but it shocks them. But also, even if you get a judgment in your favour, if they don't have the money, there's very limited ways that you can actually extract cash from them. You can put a stop in their bank account. You can also put sell some of their property. So let's say they've got a car or a house in their name and that kind of thing. You can put a charge over it so they can't sell it unless they give you some of the money that they get from that. But if they've not got any money or they disappear off the face of the earth, there's actually not very much you can do even when you've got a judgment against it. So be really careful who you're giving credit to in terms of doing work for. And make sure that they're genuine people. Do you have any sort of top tips for avoiding being targeted by non-payers, Carol?
Trust your gut instinct.
Oh yeah, good one.
And there's an online company called Duedil, D-U-E-D-I-L.
I'll put this on it, so it's D-U-E.
DIL.com, I think. Okay. And I'm not sure whether it costs now.
I'll see if we can get this up.
They've not been going
Here we go.
that long. A couple of years they've been in existence. And I got an unsolicited email. And if you joined them there and then, you could get information about companies free of charge.
There we go. That's up on the screen for you now.
Yeah. Yes, they've got a very good website, and you can obviously you can only search for limited companies. You know, if it's another sole trader that owes you money, you're a bit stuffed. But Duedil I found are very good for. They'll tell you when accounts have been submitted. They'll tell you who the directors are. They'll break down the accounts for you, and in fact one client I was having trouble with, I did a Duedil search on him. He was a limited company, and I found out that he'd made whacking great losses for the last 2 tax years, so I was quite glad when I gave him the sack. Because it's an easy to use website as well. So
that's a top tip, Carol. Thanks for that one. Do you work with offshore companies? Or I must admit, I don't. Simply because I think it's you will find a lot of VAs. Although you can work with anybody around the world, and certainly logistically, it's perfectly possible. Actually, physically being able to go and get money off them, or you know, be able to track them, it becomes a lot harder. At that point, and even if you get paid up front, sometimes it can be tricky.
They're offshore for a reason.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, we had a client who came to us that was based in Greece, and seemed very genuine. She said, "I'll pay you up front." It's for call answering, actually. "I'll pay you up front. Here's the money for it. I'll pay you via PayPal, and I'm based in Greece. This is my billing address, blah, blah, blah." So because I see, I'm very, very pedantic about this, but because I see all the new leads coming in, I said no. And the guy that had got the contract, Stephen, for us, said, "Oh, you're being silly. You're being too cautious. You know, of course she's a genuine lady, blah, 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 blah. You know, she's going to pay us up front via PayPal. I don't see what your problem is." And I pointed out to him that, being paid by PayPal, if they dispute the payment, they can immediately drag it straight out of your bank account. So that is one reason not to use PayPal for payments. I only ever use PayPal with trusted clients that I know are not going to do that. But B, when we Googled, Google mapped the address that she'd given us, the first address that she'd given us was a mail forwarding company, which she'd said was a home address. And when we queried this with her, she gave us another one, which basically was in the middle of nowhere, and actually, you know, it didn't appear to actually be a proper address. So, you know, spider senses tingling, gut instinct, as Carol said, definitely don't do it. And you know, to this day, she could well have been a genuine client. She wasn't a client that we wanted to work with, and you know, now I just say that, you know, we're not insured to work with offshore companies. Our professional indemnity insurance.
By offshore companies, do you mean companies in other countries?
Yeah, I mean companies in other countries, or actually anyone that doesn't reside in the UK.
Right.
We've
Well, in
had,
that case, I tell a Porky because
yeah.
I've got one in Italy and one in Hungary.
Oh, there you go.
When
International
you
office stuff.
when you said offshore companies, I had, visions of companies in the Cayman Islands and things who were there but for nefarious reasons.
Yes,
No, I've got
you
but
do have
they've
international
both
clients.
got yeah, they've both got accounts in the UK.
Yeah, I have to say, I mean, it's quite interesting. I simply won't do it now because every time that I've actually done it, it's been tricky, or there's been delays in getting stuff back to them because of time differences and stuff like that. I'm very reluctant to do it now, and particularly if you've got insurance as well, check your insurance policy because sometimes you won't be covered if you're working with clients that are based overseas. Some of them you can get that to be covered, other ones you might have a problem with. So we've mentioned a couple of programs on this. Take us through. You mentioned which accounts program do you use, Carol, and why?
Well, I use QuickBooks, and you can get QuickBooks online now. Simply because I got used to using it in one of the jobs I had, and it was a hell of a lot more user-friendly than Sage.
Oh, Sage is a nightmare, I have to say.
It's an accountant's tool, and the number of times I've got into a small business where the accountant has said, oh, you need Sage, blah, 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 not trained the client at all, or even explained why they should need Sage. And because the client's got absolutely no idea, the thing's a pig in mess. It's just dreadful.
It's quite complicated
you really
for small businesses.
You really have to take it off and start again right from scratch, which is expensive for the client because he's got to pay you for your time in sorting it out. And I like QuickBooks because it's nice and simple, and it's got a great user interface.
It is good. It is good.
Nowadays, there are all sorts of online bookkeeping, accounting programs, and I notice you've got Cashflow.
We do. We just brought up Cashflow because Cashflow are actually one of our sponsors, and I must admit, I went to Cashflow and asked if they would sponsor this session because I use Cashflow in my business. I have used it from the days of when I had literally a big cash receipt book and a piece of paper and a pencil. This was actually, it's the closest and simplest thing that you get with all of the goodies that accounts programs have. It's very simple to use, it's very simple to start up, and the thing that I love about it is it has absolutely fantastic help desk research. As I said, I'm not a numbers person, I can use this. And I've also, I've emailed them at 8 o'clock on a Saturday night, hoping that the account manager would get back to me on Monday morning with an answer to my really stupid query. And I did actually get a response within half an hour. So they're clearly as sad as I am and to be doing their accounts on Saturday night. But it does things like, for example, let's say that you've got different expenses going through the business. You might have advertising or tech updates, or perhaps you've spent money, you want to know how much money you've spent over the year on subcontract VAs. And you can assign different cost codes to those things. So let's say I've got 5 different subcontract VAs that work for me, and I want to find out overall what percentage of my income has gone straight back out the door again in terms of subcontract fees. Cashflow is brilliant because you can do that in there. It's really, really good. It also can create automatic invoices for regular or retainer clients. So things like, let's say you have a client that does 5 hours a month with you every month. I can set that up to basically email the client straight away on the 1st of each month. It's brilliant. You can just forget about it. You can see a history of what the client's bought. You can send them emails straight from there. You can also, and this is really, Cashflow isn't the only online account software, I should mention that as well. There are other ones, the Xero, Carol's mentioned that QuickBooks have an online version as well. Loads of them have this. There's also, there's tons of them. But one of the really important things that you have to consider is how can you upload and download stuff. If you're starting and working with a new accounts package, the first thing you want to do is be able to import all of your clients' and customers' details straight into there without having to sit and type them all in. And the second thing is, if you are going to perhaps just trial something, you want to be able to take all the information that you've uploaded into there out as well. And one of the things that really attracted me to Cashflow is that you can do that just using an Excel spreadsheet. So it's really good, and I have to say it's not particularly expensive for what it is. I use it all the time, so that's something that I always really suggest. It's perhaps not particularly relevant for really new VAs. You don't have to have an accounts program, and in fact, what Carol's already suggested, the Excel spreadsheet with what you've earned, what you spent, great way of doing it. But when you get into the situation that perhaps you've got maybe 10 to 15 clients you need to invoice each month, sometimes that can be quite daunting. I've had another question or advice. Would you work for free for a startup company? Somebody comes to you, they say, I've got a new business, I'm going to be earning loads of money. Could you work for free, and when I make the money, I'll pay you?
No.
No, me either.
No, I wouldn't. I mean, I might have done when I was first setting up.
Do you know what I would do in that situation? I would probably say to them, I'm not going to do that. However, what I can do is point you in the right direction of some stuff that's going to help you. So, for example, let's say that they're starting up and they need to know where to go to get the best business cards, and they need to know where to go, how to do, how to do their accounts, send them to Cashflow. They need to know all these kinds of things. So I'd probably send them some quite helpful stuff, and then say to them, come back to me when you can afford me.
Yeah, I'd do exactly the same now.
Or Lindsay suggested send them info for grants, which is very true. There are grants out there, the limited ones, admittedly, but there are grants out there for new start businesses. And in fact, I'm going to just try and get one up on the screen that you can have a wee look at as well.
And of course, if you're under 30, you can apply to the Prince's Trust.
I have to say the Prince's Trust are amazing, and PSYBT actually funded me when I first started out, and not only did they give me money, which I did have to pay back, but they also they give you a mentor as well, which is great. And they check that you're doing your accounts every month, because they did that for the first 12 months of my business, and it was the most useful thing, I have to say. So I'm going to sing their praises. Prince's Trust also give grants as well. To people under 30, as Carol said. So I think it depends a little bit on your circumstances, but they're really helpful. So that's a top tip. We've got a couple of questions that have been emailed in. This one is kind of a tricky one, and I don't know if Carol wants to jump into this one or not, so I will let you take a decision about it. The question is, IR35 implications of working for more than 2 years with a major client. Is it deemed as being employed by HMRC, and how do other VAs manage this? So basically what this is, to give a bit of background on this, IR35 was a piece of legislation brought in by the government to determine whether somebody was employed or self-employed. So Carol, perhaps you can expand on that a little bit.
No, I'm trying to find a piece of paper on that one.
I knew I was going to put you on the spot at some point today.
No, basically, you are not an employee if you can show that you supply your own equipment, you work from your own premises. I mean, it's always dangerous if you've got all your eggs in one basket. Then Mr. Taxman may very well deem you to be employed by that basket. I've been too efficient and filed it.
I've just put up on the screen the employment status indicator tool. This is a tool that was created by HMRC to find out whether you're employed or self-employed. Now, the reason that they are so keen on defining this is that basically it was brought in to stop mainly IT companies from claiming that someone was self-employed and letting them pay a lot less tax by discounting personal expenses like travel, mobile phone, hotels, etc. off their taxed income. So basically what the IT companies were doing was that they maybe had somebody that was earning £70,000 a year, and they were saying, no, we're self-employed, and therefore, we can also take all of these expenses off that £70,000 salary, and therefore they would pay a lot less tax, essentially. So it was kind of to fuel tax efficiency, or they would claim, in these companies. But what it actually did is it slightly upset freelancers, because they said, well, I've worked for my client for 3 years, and I don't want to fall foul of this law. Where HMRC would smell a rat is basically if you only had one client. That's a big giveaway. And also had various employee-like traits. So you work from their office, you had set hours, you can't substitute somebody else to do your work. It has to be you to do it. They dictate the terms and the way that you work and when you work, etc. So that's kind of what IR35 is all about. It's not something that would be an issue for a normal VA unless they only had one client. And if you could prove the other things, like that you used your own equipment, that you worked from your own office, that you could substitute, they might, that all counts towards you actually being self-employed rather than an employee. So that's a little bit of an overview on this. Oh, now I do have another question which came through earlier on. This one, I've now lost a bit of paper as well, so that's
well, I did actually find my piece of paper, and you basically said exactly what I was going to say.
There you go. This is one actually from Alison. She's kind of fallen into doing bookkeeping for a client. She's registered for the money laundering regulations, but she's not had any formal training. Would you recommend training for a particular level, or do you have to have training, or what is money laundering regulations and why do you need them, and that kind of thing? There's probably 2 or 3 questions in that, but she's obviously been asked to do bookkeeping by somebody, and bookkeeping can be a very wide term, so it might not actually be bookkeeping itself that she's doing. It might just be receipts and things like that.
She might just be invoicing, but I mean, even if all you're doing is invoicing, you still have to be registered with HMRC as an accountancy service provider under the money laundering regulations.
And what are the money laundering regulations? I mean, not all of them, obviously, but what are they roughly, and when were they brought in, and sort of why do you be aware of them?
Let me just go and find another piece of paper. Okay. I was hoping this one wasn't going to come up.
I spoiled all your fun there, Carol. So money laundering regulations, why would you need to be registered for that?
Basically, where's that? Here we go. Here we go. Right. Money laundering. Let me just wait till it comes up.
So
Alison's broadband here in Wales,
It's very far from anything. Alison says she does income and expense reports and will be doing VAT returns using a variety of packages, not just invoicing. So she's a little bit more advanced, perhaps edging towards doing bookkeeping proper.
Okay. Well, money laundering regulations came into, and it's to do with basically criminal property and terrorism. And they came.
Sounds great. Being a VA isn't boring. All sorts of things.
There are 3 bits of UK legislation. There's the Money Laundering Regulations 2007, the Proceeds of Crime Act 2002 Part 7, and the Terrorism Act 2000 as amended by the Anti-Terrorism Crime and Security Act 2001. And the 2007 money laundering regulations require all businesses to be supervised by an appropriate anti-money laundering supervisory authority.
So basically, if you were a membership of, say, accountancy professional institution,
Yeah.
something like that.
Then if you were a member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants, your governing body would cover you for any money laundering registration you needed to do. But for people who aren't members of any accountancy or bookkeeping organisation, HMRC will register you as a provider of accountancy services, under which comes bookkeeping. And I think it's 110 or 120 pounds a year. So money laundering, there's quite a wide definition, but it includes all forms of handling or of possessing criminal property, including possessing the proceeds of one's own crime and facilitating any handling or possession of criminal property.
Well, Alison's saying that she hasn't received any guns, so it makes it sound very exciting. I always thought bookkeeping was boring.
It's all to do, the terrorism bit is all to do with funding terrorists. So if you had a dodgy client who was, I don't know, in touch with Al-Qaeda or something or other, and actually laundering money for them, which they then went on to purchase guns with, well, like you'd be in big shit.
I so want to hear from VAs that are funding Al-Qaeda. I think that's fascinating. But that's kind of the download on money laundering regulations. So if you were, you know, like Alison, she's kind of come to this bookkeeping for this client under, yeah, they've asked her to do it. She's done the right thing by registering herself for money laundering regulations. But if you're going to be doing bookkeeping, you want to offer bookkeeping to somebody, what are the best courses to apply for? Other than the Al-Qaeda training, obviously.
Well, there are two actual bookkeeping organisations. There's the Institute of Certified Bookkeepers, which is very British, and I think its patron is the Duke of something or other, the one that's married to the German princess person thing.
Prince Michael? No?
That's it! Prince Michael of Kent.
There you go.
That's it. There we are. Go and have a look at their website, and it will give you details of courses and of their qualifications.
So that one's called the Institute of...
The Institute of Certified Bookkeepers.
I'll get this one up. Hang on a second.
I've always wanted to be certified. It's wonderful. And I think student membership to them is about £45 a year.
Okay.
Once you have passed the required number of exams with them, you can apply for a practicing certificate.
Okay, that's them up here now.
Yeah, and then they will cover you under the money laundering regulations, and you can stop being registered direct with them and blah, 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 with Mr. Taxman.
Right. Okay. Then that makes sense. And what was the second one that you suggested?
The Institute IAB, the International Association of Bookkeepers. That's them. Oh, blimey! I just see my membership with the ICB expires in October.
Let's get this one up. Hang on a second. Is that the right one? Yeah, this one.
Hang on. Oh, yeah. That's them.
There we go.
Yeah. Of the two, I think I prefer the ICB. I've looked at both. I don't know, perhaps because I just like to be so British. But yeah, so I did. In fact, I didn't do a course. I just did their basic bookkeeping exam. for the ICB and passed with distinction.
Of course, I would not expect anything less.
Well, I don't know. I did wonder, you know, when I got the damned exam paper, and I thought, oh my goodness. But anyway, I did it and passed with distinction, which I was quite chuffed about. The ICB has changed its qualification structure over the last couple of years, because you can't now just go straight into computerized bookkeeping. You have to do the manual first and then the computerized bookkeeping.
Oh.
So and I think you've got the basic level, level 1, level 2, and then a diploma.
So those are the two you would...
When you've done, yeah, you can get a practicing certificate after level 2.
Good.
And I imagine the IAB is something similar.
So that's something to think about if you're going to offer bookkeeping or actually do any kind of invoicing, that kind of thing. I must admit, although we do it as part of the business, we have somebody who is a qualified accountant that does it all for us. Even receipt processing and stuff we won't do now.
That is an actual, if you like, accountancy bookkeeping qualification. It doesn't train you to use Sage or QuickBooks or anything like that.
It's the nuts and bolts.
I think they do use Sage.
Thank you, Carol. We're going to close the session down. We have run a little bit over again. I'm not doing well on this. I must keep an eye on the time.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
It's been wonderful. Thank you for stepping in last minute. As I said, Carol did a cracking job stepping in last minute for us.
Very nice truffles.
Well, I'm glad they arrived while we were all there. That's fantastic. I'm going to stop recording now. And again, we've got one little question coming through saying, wonderful, Carol, thanks for a great session. There you go.
Oh, nice. My pleasure.
Very much so. And basically what we'll be doing will be, Rebecca saying massive help. Thank you. Brilliant. From Irene.
If anybody wants any more information, I think Lindsay's probably added everybody to the Skype group.
She has, I think.
So, yeah. So just post the query on that and I'll do my best to answer it.
Fantastic. We're going to stop recording now. Again, I'm going to kick everybody out. We start at 2 o'clock with the Lazy Mayor's Guide to Marketing, and you get to listen to my dulcet tones again. What I'll do, we're going to kick everybody out of the room just now, so we're closing it down. If you log back in at 2 o'clock, we will be online a little bit before 2 o'clock, and we'll kick off then. And we will see you all then. Speak to you then. Bye.
Okay. Bye.